What's up, Charles?
I'm doing fine, Mel. How are you, my brother?
I'm good. I'm good. Aloha Friday to you, bro.
Same here, brother. Same
Been a long week, man. Been a long week, and I'm glad that it's over. Glad that it's over. Heading to the weekend, which I
here. Yep.
plan to do absolutely nothing, I think.
Mhm.
Just nothing. Maybe wash my truck. At Suds, of course,
Yep.
because, it takes absolutely no effort. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Friday night Facebook Live with Mel and Charlie. Tonight we have two people we haven't seen in a while, Dr. Capono Chong-Hanssen and Dr. Dara O'Carroll. So they're going to be making their appearance in a few minutes. Um, Interesting. I'll see what their thoughts are on what's happening in our state. I understand, after all the hoopla about boosters. I saw Mayor Victorino yesterday come out and say that. Well, actually today he made the comment they're removing the requirement now of boosters to be considered fully vaccinated. And then I didn't see it, but I heard that there was a panel discussion tonight with the governor, Lieutenant Governor Victorino, and some other people that I guess for the unsafe travel program, where the governor was considering the adding the requirement for boosters. Now they're backpedaling, and because the numbers are drastically dropping, that there's no need to have those restrictions. So I'm curious to hear what Dara O'Carroll and Kapono Chong Hansen have to say about that, because the numbers are going down, Charlie. We had this discussion the other night. Numbers going down, but so are the testing numbers going down too. So
Mhm.
it is what it is. You take it for what it's worth.
Right.
So we'll see.
Well, I guess whenever there is something that would fall in line with what you wanted and it sides with you, you're gonna feel very confident about it, right? And I think that's what it is, for the time being the numbers are dropping, and yes, Hawaii relies on testing, but testing is dropping as well. So, and naturally you're going to get a reduction in numbers all the way around. But that does not mean, because we've seen this so many times, and the state has been very inconclusive about how it apply testing. Because remember when the numbers dipped, it was this, oh, it's a great feeling, it's a new beginning. And then all of a sudden, like wildfire, the thing shot up. And then everybody went, okay. So that went, it did that little dip again. But this time, because they lifted the testing at the airports, right?
Hmm.
When it started to full throttle, there was no way of recalling this thing. There was no way of knowing where in heck the virus was coming from.
Yeah.
Everybody was warned, Omicron is new, be careful. But we took the position like, it's always good to feel like Superman. But I tell you what happened. We had a lot of people that had Superman capes on, but they succumbed to the virus in a big way. And so, it, we put out so much safety PSAs about drunk driving. We put so much out about how we got to be safe on the roadway, right? And, one person decides to act like a dodo, drive DUI, kill somebody, right? This thing is almost the same thing. We're putting out warnings out there. How can we avoid it? How can we help others avoid it? How can at least, put at least a stop? Maybe not 100%, but put some kind of dent in its movement, right? And the state took no opportunity. They felt like, hey, it is part of our natural being. No, it's not. I don't go around every day wishing to get tagged by Omicron. So it is what it is, and it's an unfortunate situation, no. And,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to take, Charlie.
yeah.
I know the messaging is, we've been talking about for years now.
Mhm.
Again, today's message, again, it just feeds the people the information that conveys to them that this virus is going away, and it's it's weakening, and it's simply not true. So we'll see what happens. God forbid we get another surge, and then it goes back up, and then they all pound the chest and start blaming the people and telling we got to get boosters and blah 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 blah. Kauai today we had there's 13 people in the hospital on just from Kauai. That's high for us. So they can tell all they want. They can tell they can spew their garbage. I always say we got to work with the willing, work with the people that are willing to gain knowledge and information, and that's the ones we work with, and the ones that choose to take chances. We can just pray for them. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. By the way, my dad just popped up. I know I had a couple of questions about my stepmom. My dad texted me tonight, uh, about an hour ago, and said that the doctors are just amazed at the progress. So again, he's on, so I'm sure he'll be posting some comments. He told me that he wish he could thank each and every one of you personally for your prayers, but she's getting better every day. Still not out of the woods, but definitely uh, much improvement from that night where my dad was told that she wasn't going to make it through the night. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your prayers. I know my dad is on, and I'm sure he'll post it up. But know that he appreciates you all very, very much. And
All
that
right.
we continue to pray, we continue to pray, we continue to pray. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. That's simply all I can say. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
And thanks to prayer. Thanks to prayer. So I appreciate the village for all your prayers. And we'll keep you guys posted as the days go by. We all pray for continued progress every day, and full recovery at some point. So
Well, first of all, I'd like to apologize that it's no class of me to eat on air, but that's just me. I rushed home and I didn't have anything to eat yet, so I just wanted to nibble on something. So
go for it, bro. Go for it.
there we go. And yet,
Go get some real food, man.
okay, then here,
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
it's on
That's what I'm
standby.
talking about.
It's on standby, brother. It's on standby. But
There you
I'd like
go.
to give a shout out to your dad. And I spoke of before how powerful prayers are, and I am so happy that she was able to pull through. I mean, I know she's not out of the woods 100%, but I know that she the prayers is the one that really came through, and everybody out there who's been in that's had prayers answered. It's an amazing thing, and I've been blessed. There was one time in my life, well, those that know me know I was married before, and unfortunately my wife passed away from cancer. But the Lord answers prayers. Just raising three boys, and you just wonder what does life hold for you, and He answered prayers, and I'm here today, and I still believe in the Word of God. And I'm not preaching to anybody out there. If you're a non-believer, you have a right to choose. But I am
But
one of
God bless them too.
Yeah, but God bless them too. But I am 100% believing that your stepmom is going to make 100% recovery, where she's going to stand tall, and your dad will be able to share a tear and smile every day. I firmly believe that.
Well, thank you very much, Charlie. Thank you. And again, thank you to the village.
Yeah.
My dad will be here at the concert that we have after COVID. The and he
The
will
one
be
that
able to.
I'm not going to be at.
Yeah, you will be there. You will be there. All right, ladies and gentlemen,
How's it,
welcome,
everybody?
Dr. Dara O'Carroll.
Yep.
Hello. Good to see you guys. The village and Mel and Charlie. Good to see you. It's been a while.
Yes. Aloha no, my brother. And
Yeah. Happy New Year.
how is married life treating you? Let's
Not yet.
Not yet.
Got a little time. Yeah. So
Well, I'm sorry.
don't rush me, Uncle Charlie.
No, that's a test. That's a test. But you got all the time in the world. Enjoy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
When's the wedding?
We're looking. We actually had something in April, and just with COVID and things, we're waiting a little bit longer. So we're looking to push it back sometime later in the year. So.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I for some reason I'm with Charlie. I swear we that you had already gotten married, but
Hmm.
maybe
Oh, no ring yet. Almost.
all right,
Almost.
too much Snickers maybe and coffee.
Yeah.
So Capono should be coming on any moment now. Appreciate you guys taking the time to come on tonight. Our viewers, you guys are a couple of the favorites, and we always get asked, hey, when you bring Capono and Dara back on? Blah blah blah. Okay. Tonight you got both of them.
Flattering. That's
Yeah.
very flattering. We're honored to have that distinction. So it's good to be back.
Well, you guys speak truth, and it's amazing, Doc. Over the years, the last couple of years now, how many people rely. And I don't say this to take any credit or brag or whatever. I'm just saying this is what we're told, that a lot of people come here to get fed the information that they can trust, and it's not because of me and Charlie. It's because of our guests. So we just appreciate. We know everybody's busy, and it's a stressful time for many people. So yeah, we're honored to have you on,
No. Well,
and
you guys got to
so
take some credit for that. Absolutely. So thank you
yeah,
for what
yeah,
you're
we push the buttons. Yeah, we push the buttons.
doing.
Man. If I keep saying, if we didn't have a village, we didn't have guests, and we'd just be we'd just be me and Charlie talking to each other all night long. That would,
Yep.
and that's as much as I love Charlie, man. That would get old real quick. It would get old real quick.
Sometimes I miss Mel so much. I actually go back to look in the mirror and talk to myself. And it goes on for hours.
Yeah, it's so amazing how even Charlie and I, as close as we were pre-COVID, how much closer we got because of COVID.
Yeah.
We almost kind of, it's like, we call it the yin and the yang, but it's kind of like I know what he's thinking, he knows what I'm thinking. It's kind of bizarre, actually. It's kind of strange. It's kind of strange, but
You
appreciate
guys
it, man.
you gotta have chemistry.
Yeah, I guess so. Look, my Dr. Long, my dentist is on. Dr. Long, what's up, my man? I miss you, bro. He retired. You guys all know how afraid I am of dentists, and this guy was. I hope it's the right Robert Long. It's kind of a. Let me make sure. I gotta check his profile to see if it's him. Well, if it's not, I'm sure he can take a joke. But yeah, so my dentist, I'm so afraid of dentists, and Dr. Long will tell you, I sweat when I go to the dentist. It's crazy. And but this guy, he was able to soothe you and make you feel so comfortable. So I just didn't sweat as much with Dr. Long, but I still sweat. I don't that. So, anyway, so what's up, Doc? Well, Capona might be a little late, but
Sure.
what's going on, my friend? Charlie and I was just talking about. I know you keep track of all what's going on around the world, but Charlie and I was just chatting before you all came on about the messaging that, in fact, we just come off another surge, Omicron, and the numbers went crazy again, and the hospitals filled up, and we're still starting to see hospitals at capacity. But now it's the case counts are starting to come down. Obviously, we are not testing as much as we were testing, which would also contribute to a declining case count. But now we're starting to see the messaging that we're releasing the restrictions. We're now, you know, there was once talk about getting boosters included as the fully vaccinated description, but now they're easing off of that. Maui just removed that policy. What are your thoughts? Are we out of the woods yet? Should we be looking at reducing restrictions, or is it too soon?
Really good question. It is true that case counts seem to be going down, just like the rest of the country, and a lot of parts of the world are going down. This virus spreads so quick that it infects as many people as it can and comes down fairly quick as well. Maybe not as quick as it spreads. So we're seeing some elements of that. But I think now isn't the time really to completely set our sails and say, hey, look, we're done, because that seems to be a predominant notion, and I think we're very far from that. I just want to read something real quick from Dr. Rick Bright. He's the head of the Pandemic Prevention Institute. Was in the former White House administration, and he raised the red flag against hydroxychloroquine and subsequently got fired for it, pretty much. You could think of him as a whistleblower, but now he works for the Rockefeller organization. And what he says, which I think is extremely poignant, is we can wait for dangerous variants to smack us in the face, or we can look at their evolution under the surface of the dominant virus and predict where it will go. And so I think we're really failing to look what's happened in the last 2 years. We've had variant after variant come across not just the globe, but especially our shores. And we're missing a really tremendous opportunity to learn from our mistakes. And the greatest mistake you can make is one you don't learn from. And so there's a lot of things that we can do to set us up for success in the future. And I think there needs to be a huge push for that. And I don't believe it's happening. It's more like just letting off the gas pedal, only to push it down again when there's an inevitable surge that's going to happen again. So from a medical standpoint, and I always try and speak from a medical standpoint, and it's funny when you speak from a medical standpoint, you're automatically labeled as political, but I think that's wrong in the sense that you got to stand up for what's right and what's the medicine going to say and do and protect the people. And so I think we could be doing a lot more is the gist.
Well, I think what you've just said is so true, Doc. And one thing that happens that I see that is typical of human beings, and that is when we go to war and we get we get dinged pretty good, right? You notice that our government will set up all the defenses, whether we're in war or not, but we just won't let it happen again, right? When it comes to this virus, for some reason, when they throttle down all the way, leaving our defenses wide open. And that's the thing I'm having a hard time understanding. I mean, we've got shellacking twice already. I mean, maybe even 3 times. And I don't know why they want to leave that gateway open enough that we can get shellacked again for the 4th time. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And yet, I know we've been preaching to the choir. Everyone on this show knows the seriousness of this, but it seems like we've been preaching to the choir, and it's just like something just doesn't wake the ones at the top up. The people that can make things happen. They just won't go for it for some reason. So that's my read and that's my cue on it, and it's sad. I wish I could have a different feeling about it, but it seems to be playing out all over again. And so I don't want to be selfish, because I want everybody to be safe. But if you're gonna do this and people fall down that rabbit hole, then the people that I can reach, I want them to use as much caution as possible, right? That's the big
Hey, Doc, there's a question on the screen. Any thoughts on statewide average 10.3% positivity still, and why the DOH reporting system? We've had issues with the reporting system all the time. It's a problem that they've had and they cannot get fixed. But this 10.3 positivity rating or positivity rate uh, is number one. Do you think that's accurate? Because again, it's very hard to tell. I spoke to a woman today, a friend of mine that has COVID right now, and she tested. She got symptoms, and she took a home test and tested positive. And she spoke to the Department of Health and asked, where does she report it? Does she? They said, no, you don't need to report it. Just stay home, isolate, quarantine, wear a mask, blah blah blah. So there's a huge segment of the population that are doing exactly what she did. Took a home test, got positive, either called their doctor or. Uh, I don't know what the real positivity rate is, but the amount of people that got infected seems caused me to believe that it's a significantly higher number. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely a higher number. So many people are using rapid tests as diagnostics, and there is no reliable way to, at least at this point, to get that into our state system. There's a couple of private applications where there's, and they actually do this in the UK, and I don't know why they couldn't have done it here, but they have a little QR code at the bottom of the little plastic rapid test, and that QR code is linked to a specific test. And so you use their government sanctioned app and take a picture of that QR code with either one red line or two red lines, and it does some artificial intelligence and then puts that in. So there are definitely ways to do it. It just hasn't happened here. Like a lot of other things, like you got to have the want and the will, because there's usually always a way. And the other point I'd like to make as well is that immunity from Omicron. We only have this variant out for about 10 weeks, so there's not a lot of known in the long term, but it's looking like the immunity doesn't last very long, and that's akin to the same common cold coronaviruses that we see. You can get reinfected within weeks with those ones and not know it. And so Omicron, there's almost like the more in symptoms you have, and the more your immune system is triggered, the longer the immunity is going to wane. And because there is less severity on average with Omicron, it looks like when you look through a population that a population's immunity isn't going to last as long. So, what's up, Pono?
Hey, sorry, I was playing Dara, the Kalaheo internet bingo I was playing.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Well, you're missed when our village can put Dr. Capono Chong-Hanssen get highlights on his facial hair now. That's how long we've known each other. We all get the highlights coming up now.
Yeah, I blame COVID.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's the new color. When you go paint your house, you can get a COVID white, and it's just this color right here. Not eggshell white, but the COVID white. Welcome, Doc Capono. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, I caught some of that introduction. I mean, I'm not sure if your viewers know this already, but my understanding was that the Department of Health got overwhelmed. Their IT system was overwhelmed to the point where they couldn't handle all of the testing results. And as a result, I think what they had to do, at least temporarily, was not deal with the negatives and only deal with the positives, which made it impossible to have an accurate positivity rate. I'm not an IT person, but it's one of those moments when you're like, how far are we in this pandemic, and we have an information technology crisis like that. I mean, it's just another example of, if it couldn't have been predicted, fine. But, that's like Uncle Charlie was alluding to, our Department of Defense makes all kind of plans for, contingency plans for the future. And that's what I think Hawaii needs to be looking at now, rather than I think what Dara and I, tend to call a victory lap. It seems like as soon as any surge starts coming down, it's like we're taking a victory lap. And, how many times are we going to make that mistake?
I think I think they continue to make it. I for the life of me, I don't get it. And as doctors, right? What is more important to you as, let's say you're a policymaker or a medical doctor that's advising policymakers? Yeah, let's use that scenario. So you two are responsible for reporting to or recommending to the governor or to the mayor or whoever is in charge. What's more important to you, the number of cases or the positivity rate? Really, I mean, if you're planning for the future, for short term, midterm, long term, the cases are meaningless if you don't know the positivity rate. Because how do you prepare for an outbreak? Because if the positivity rate is at 1%, then you really don't have to worry too much. But if it's at 28% or 32% or 41%, which is where it had been, 4 out of 10 people, 5 out of 10 people taking that test are COVID positive. It's important. That positivity rate is definitely a key piece of information, and I don't understand how we cannot make that happen, especially year 3. I agree with you. I mean, it's insane.
Well,
I mean, if you're asking that question, I would say there's so many other variables involved. I'm not sure if I could clearly answer whether total cases or positivity rate is more important. There's a factor of how much testing is accessible, and then how virulent is the virus. So, total cases during Omicron are staggering, but with Omicron, we're not seeing as much hospitalization, so not as important as it was during Delta, for example. So I have a hard time answering that question of which one's more important, but I just overall feel like you want to have an information technology system that is can handle what the state is going to throw at it and be top notch, not something that's like if this gets really bad, it just implodes on itself. I mean, that's not a good situation.
Real quick though, as I look at the federal databases out of the CDC website or the other Federal Department of Health websites that have the data, they had the positivity rate, they had the information, which tells me that the state was sending it to them. They just weren't releasing it to the people, which is kind of scary. And I cannot imagine how those federal agencies would be getting that information unless it was being provided by the state. Maybe George White can help answer that. But I mean, I posted some charts where the positivity rate was quite high for Hawaii, and they obviously in their footnotes on the chart, it says they get their information from the state's Department of Health. So interesting. I just was curious of whether or not they actually had the info and they didn't want to release it, or they just didn't have the data. Pretty interesting.
Well, I will share one thing with you. And today, the information I received with regarding one of our airlines that comes into Hawaii. They tested 114 employees. 111 came back tested positive. That's nearly a 1-for-1. And I've been seeing these numbers relatively frequently. I mean, like almost every other day. Numbers like this. So you can have maybe like 190 tested, and you're getting back 185 that's positive. It is very, very scary. Very scary. So then again, it leads me to say, okay, we're at a point where we're reactive. We're no longer proactive. We had a chance to be proactive, but we're reactive. And even at that, the state just doesn't want to put the best foot forward. So, they have no problem, when it's time to collect taxes and they start a program. Oh, they'll implement it real fast and they'll take whatever they can from it. But when you ask them, hey, the same tax money you collected from us, can you run a program to maybe slow this thing down so we can breathe a little? They won't even do that. And to me, that's very sad. That's very sad.
I have some questions, specific questions from our viewers. I'm not sure if you folks can answer it, but the first one here is about Omicron. Do you know if Omicron is causing microclots like Delta did?
Um, I'll go ahead and take a stab at that, and it is maybe not in. And again, this is a 10-week-old variant. We don't know exactly the proportions, but there's some people who are coming in really asymptomatic, other than they have a stroke or they have a heart attack or myocardial infarction, which are all clots, and maybe not microclots, but it's an indication that there's still a clotting cascade being triggered, but they don't have like the bad pulmonary viral pneumonias or the low oxygen. It's that their body was triggered into a higher clotting state, and that's not everyone, but it's still because so many people are being infected, it's still a significant proportion that we're seeing. So still happening, Brian. Yep.
Dr. Capono or Dr. O'Carroll, incubation period for Omicron, infectious period for Omicron. I had another call today from another friend of mine who had a coworker had a close contact last week, middle of last week. Today, for whatever reason, got tested positive. So I know we dropped the quarantine time from 10 days to 5 days, but do we actually know, being that it's such an early or new variant, the BA2, do we know the infectious period, the incubation period, or do we have an idea what that is?
Paul, you want to go for that one? I have a couple ideas, but
I bet you know the data a little bit better than me. Maybe I'll go first, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
My understanding is the incubation period for Omicron is shortening in comparison to the other variants. So 2 or 3 days after exposure, perhaps. And testing the sweet spot is probably between 3 and 5 days after an exposure. Pretty interesting stuff from Michael Mina, as always, about the duration of infectiousness. There's a lot of experts out there that do not agree with this 5-day isolation period, for example. I think people need to understand, too, that, that recommendation, it's really 10 days. I mean, I try to emphasize that to my patients. It's 10 days, it's 5 days with masking around other people all the time, even within your home, for those remaining 5 days, if your symptoms have completely gone away, or at least that's what the Department of Health of Hawaii took, whereas CDC said symptoms are resolving. But that, to me, that 5-day thing, and then you say, okay, let's go back to work, mask all the time, I mean, that's just pretty hard for people to follow. So I think that's risky. I think we really should be looking at it more like 10, and under certain circumstances that can be a little bit abbreviated with, very good compliance to mask wearing. And I read something also interesting recently that actually vaccinated people might actually be infectious a little bit longer than unvaccinated, which is contradictory to what I had thought. But part of that is that the symptoms for vaccinated people usually are more mild, but they start earlier because our body knows and immediately recognizes this is COVID. I need to fight it. A lot of the things that we feel are our immune system fighting off the virus. But because the symptoms start early, then that 5-day period also ends earlier than an unvaccinated person. So the long story short there is, it's still better to be vaccinated, but we just really need to be cautious with everybody, unvaccinated and vaccinated, about, whether you can really end isolation at 5 days. And are your symptoms really, really gone? And are you really, really wearing your mask all the time? Like when you go sleep with your wife, you wear the mask for 5 more days? I mean, I think most people probably wouldn't do that.
Dr. O'Carroll?
Yeah, no, that's spot on. I totally agree. If it was 5 days, the only way I'd be comfortable with 5 days is if you were able to test on day 5 or 2. I would do 2 tests on day 5 and then day 6, and if both are negative, then I think then you're clear. But 5 days is absolutely too short. I've known many people, even myself, when I caught it, I was testing all the way rapid testing positive, which requires a pretty high viral load all the way till day 8 or so.
That's. Now I'm going to ask you a question, a controversial question, because again, one of the people that talked to me today asked me the question, and should we be treating vaccinated, unvaccinated? And I'm talking about politically. I don't give a damn about the politics of it, but specifically for health reasons and for keeping our community safe, should we be treating vaccinated, unvaccinated people differently as it relates to trying to contain the spread? Not because we got to get people back to work sooner, for the specific purpose of the health and safety. Do you think we should be treating vaccinated people differently than unvaccinated as it relates to COVID? Based on the characteristics of this virus, as much as what you just said with the vaccinated people.
Well, that's a tough question. I know from a medical standpoint, if somebody comes in and they're both ill, we took an oath that we treat people as they come in, and we don't have any bias or any interest at all in that. I can assure you that that's true. But when it comes to somebody with a booster, there's studies are coming out that they're 97 times less likely to end up dying if somebody has a booster compared to somebody who's unvaccinated. And so I would hope that data and that science and that such robustness, it's almost 100 times less likely. I would just, I guess my bigger question is why is that not getting home to people? Why are people not understanding that? And why are people hesitant? Because it's the data is so conclusive and it works so well that there's almost no reason for, I think Kapono and I feel the same way when we're looking at it. We I don't want to say struggle, but we are concerned that such good science isn't getting communicated well enough to the public, and there's still so much reservation behind it. And I think that's the bigger question that I'm worried about. But to answer your question, it's a tough one, and I don't know if I can answer that. I don't know. I'm gonna
let me try to be more
over to Pono.
let me try to be more specific as far as this is what I'm talking about. So you get 2 employees that work at the same place. One is vaccinated, one is unvaccinated. They both come in contact with the same COVID. In other words, they both have the same close contact. The vaccinated person can return right back to work the very next day as long as they don't have symptoms. Unvaccinated person's got to stay home for 5 days. I guess my question is, doesn't the vaccinated person, knowing what we know now about COVID and Omicron, doesn't that vaccinated person have pose a risk to coworkers going back to work, not knowing if they're not tested or not knowing if they're positive? I guess that was more of the question that I had, was because that's what's happening right now.
Right. I'll just have to admit I haven't reviewed data related to Omicron. I know around the time of the Delta variant, it was pretty clear that vaccinated people were still less likely to transmit the virus than unvaccinated people. And the figures were looking like unvaccinated people were about twice as likely to infect other people, probably because their viral loads when they're infectious are much higher than the viral loads of vaccinated people. Mm. So I think that there is some science behind that idea. I do think we should be cautious, and we're talking about vaccinated plus boosted probably is probably the better thing that we're talking about. I mean, if a booster was indicated, yes, those people, I do think that they're generally lower risk. I don't mind that, to infect others, and I don't mind that there are some different criteria, or privileges for those people. But I understand the skepticism. I think we're all kind of like with Omicron too, we're just kind of like, wow, really? That's what's happening with this pandemic, and we just have to be cautious with that. I certainly feel like it's okay to make different rules for things that are privileges, like going to restaurants and concerts and travel and things that aren't essential to daily life, like jobs, for people that are vaccinated and boosted. And that's another thing that I think Dara and I, think the state of Hawaii could do better is let's update everything to, consider vaccinated plus boosted if it was indicated to really be the standard, for relaxation of restrictions or granting privileges. At the same time, I never really liked this idea that we're like, okay, well, if you get vaccinated, you get this, you get this nice thing. You get to do things that other people do. To me, that should not be our people's motivation for getting vaccinated. It should be more about caring about yourself and others. But it seems to work. There's a lot of evidence that works to get more people vaccinated. So I think that makes sense. And I know you kind of clarified your question, Mel, but I did also want to explain that unvaccinated people right now are getting prioritized treatment with monoclonal antibodies and with antivirals because they're in limited supply and they're the highest risk people. Is that fair?
No.
We can argue all day long about that, but the reality, I think from a doctor's standpoint is we look at it from the absolute risk, as much as we wish people would have made better decisions. When you have limited supply, you should use it on the people that are most likely to benefit from it.
I guess I'll speak from an employer standpoint, having all the employees down at the airport. Right now, if we have a vaccinated employee that comes in contact with someone who's positive, and that employee is fully vaccinated and boosted, we still require them to get a test just in case, just to be on the safe side. The one who is not vaccinated, no ifs, ands, or buts, we tell them to go out and go get tested as well. But then we advise them to stay the 5 days, because I had a situation where we had two people, both vaccinated, fully boosted. One got really ill and one didn't, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. And I think it's when that kind of information comes out, that's why the message you said earlier, Dara, you just don't know why people don't get the message. It's because of that kind of situations. People look at that and say, hey, I may be the one that not gonna get them as bad. But you don't know, right, until that actually happens. And that's why I always, as an employer, I err on the side of caution when they bring it to my attention. I say, I know it's tough, but I need to ask you a favor. Go get tested right now. So they'll go and get tested. And I said, you show no symptoms, but just go and get tested. And if you come back negative, fine, you come back to work. But for your own peace of mind, and a lot of them have, FlowFlex now. In fact, I think CVS has lifted their restrictions. They're selling 6 at a time. Now they're selling it unrestricted. You can buy as many as you want. And I told my people today, in fact, I just asked my company, hey, why don't we start getting these test kits? Because when someone comes in contact, especially when we're doing screening at the airports, and the person coming in from the mailing is positive per the uploading of the information with the safe travels, right? At least get a real quick rundown whether, there's something on our person. So, I asked the company, why don't you buy the test kit? And that's what we're looking at right now. But I think every responsible employer should start doing that. So it should really start thinking hard about, one, taking care of the employees and helping them do what is right for everybody.
Well, Uncle Charlie, related to what you said, you can find these guidelines. The CDC has different guidelines for healthcare workers, who are kind of like the highest risk and the highest hazard to other people if they come back to work before they should, but also, in short supply and expertise is necessary. So under their conventional guidelines, they would say someone who is boosted should have no work restrictions, but should test on day 2 and then 5 and 7. Which is a little different than what the recommendation was to the general public, but matches more what you're saying that you're following.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the advantage is because we get to talk with you guys all the time. We sort of get the inside track on it. It's,
So interesting question. Um, Looks like the variant of Omicron is here, but it so far hasn't really created much of a problem. Where do we go from here? What should we expect? I've been watching some doctor segments on from UCSF and other medical hospitals. A lot of them have their own YouTube channels. They got some amazing information, but many of the experts believe that we haven't seen the last of variants. I mean, we know that there are many, hundreds and hundreds of variants that we never hear about because it's just a variant that's not creating any kind of issue. But once one becomes a variant of concern, and once it gets a name, then it's one that we got to worry about. Do you guys foresee many more of these coming down the pike in the next year?
Yeah, I think that's a certainty. I'd almost bet my house on it that there's going to be another one. Whether what kind of characteristics are going to be, and if anybody says anything with certainty, then stop listening to them, because it's almost impossible to know with anything in certainty other than another variant is going to come out. But is that variant going to be really mild? Is it going to be a lineage that's more closer to Delta? Is it going to be more closer to Omicron? The only thing we do know is there's going to be more. But what type of variant is going to be, we don't know, because now we've got a huge reservoir. Humans have become a huge reservoir, and the main reservoir that we know of so far for this virus. But now, deer in the Midwest have, I think, like a 30 to 40% positivity rate when they test them. North American deer mice as well can test positive. So we're seeing also in the Netherlands, back in, I think it was the end of 2020, they had to cull 7 million mink because there was a variant that ripped through the mink population and spilled back into the farmers. So it's creating never before in history have we had a virus that has gone so global so quickly and had so many variants spit out. And so there's a lot of uncertainty, but the good news is that we have more treatments. There's hopefully, and Pono could probably speak a bit more about Paxlovid and its availability, but hopefully we'll get a lot more of that. And then also a pan-coronavirus vaccine, which I think would be one of the main tools that we could use that is not just a variant specific, but it's kind of going to target all types of coronaviruses, would be something that's we could really look forward to. But long answer, short answer is yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think even our leaders who are taking a victory lap will acknowledge that it's unlikely that this is the last variant. I think we're trying to be optimistic and hoping that the next variants won't be as dangerous. And there's some general idea that that's good for viruses, right? Like if viruses kill their hosts, then it's harder for them to infect more hosts. But not always the case, So I think everybody knows there's going to be more variants, partly because we also don't have vaccine equality throughout the world. So there are still all these pockets of, well, not pockets, they're just large areas of unvaccinated people where there's an environment for a new variant to come up. And, that's why I think we just keep on saying, like, look, we got to, cut out the victory lap. And each time we have this opportunity, start looking to prepare for the next one. And hopefully we don't have to face something dangerous, but prepare for the next one. I think the other thing that people need to understand is there was an article in the New York Times recently about the United States and the deaths. And people need to understand the United States has not done well with COVID. We are, compared to other wealthy nations, we're really, pretty much the worst. And with the Omicron variant was the same. And we're talking about deaths. We're not talking about all these other soft things about, whatever case rates and hospitalizations. This is dead people, and there are a lot of factors that might go into it. The age of the population. the United States is the most obese country of all these countries, so that can be another factor too. But the United States has not done well. So, in the victory lap, when we hear our leaders say, and Hawaii has done the second best of all the states in the United States, we should not be satisfied with that comparison. Having this low standard of where we should be comparing ourselves, when we have this geographical difference, cultural difference, from the rest of the United States. And when you compare to other places that are culturally and geographically like Hawaii, well, then you wouldn't say we were doing that great. So I think there's an element of complacency, an element of ego that has just, and bureaucracy that has really just prevented Hawaii from adapting and really trying to address, be proactive like you guys were saying. And so we'd love to hear, more people talking about that, other than Rep. Kahele. I think, we were just so excited to hear some politicians say, hey, we should be looking at some of these things. Not like he had it, it's not like, he had all the solutions, but someone, said something. And I know he's talked to, experts, much more well-versed than us. I think some of them have been on your show too. Like, you guys had Dr. Brilliant, right? So, really experienced people. So, I really think that's what the state of Hawaii needs to be thinking more about, those kind of ideas. Not like it's the be-all, end-all, but, all those points were things that should definitely be considered and things that we can do to prepare for the future.
Yeah, and on that note, one of the really good points is I believe today had 3,850 deaths. That's a 9/11 event that just happened today. And like, how do you quantify that? It's become normalized, right? And when we compare our numbers, we had 10 today. How do you compare that to other places? And like Pono said, is we are wasting our opportunity in our geographic location. Like I think Larry Brilliant said this too. Like every other state would like crawl and to have the advantages that Hawaii has. And why don't we use it? And let's use our geographic availability to do it.
Well, the state developed a narrative. They developed their game plan with limited knowledge, because their focus wasn't so much on the health and safety as it was for the economy. But I don't know if you all remember, Dr. Brilliant was on the news last year. You remember him on the local news, and they interviewed him. I forget which channel interviewed him. And he spoke exactly what he spoke about on our show, and what he Kai Kahele went to seek out his expertise. That's how they met. And he assisted Kai with putting together that 10-step plan. But he spoke to our media, but that was it. One time, one shot, bam, he didn't fit the narrative. So he's no longer an advisor or consultant to the media, right? We don't use the people that are focusing on the science and on the trends of other places, right? We provide the info. Our media provides or puts out the information that fits the narrative of the state, which is we're in a good place. How long have we heard we're in a good place from our leaders? And I'm not just talking about the LG. I'm talking about from Char to governor to Blangiardi to everybody, even our mayor, for months now. Even when we knew what was coming, we're in a good place. We're in a good place. Yes, we should be concerned, but don't be afraid. We're in a good place. Our hospital levels are great. We're in a good place. And yet, if you talk to, you guys know this, you guys doctors, the hospitals are not in a good place. We hear that from our hospital workers. So it's all dependent on what the message that's been designed to be put out to the public and the media, because these politicians obviously buy ads and all this crap. So they don't. That's why I wish, in the beginning when we first started Mel and Charlie show, and we it wasn't as big of an issue as it is now. Hawaii News Now would email or call and say, Mel, can we borrow a clip because we had so and so. I think I don't know if it was Capona, maybe you were on one night. I forget which one they borrowed and they put them on the news. And we don't do this to get on Hawaii News now, but I'm just saying there's a lot of quality experts that have come and gone on this show, but no one has ever used it because it doesn't fit the narrative, and that's the problem. That's the problem. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think the economic part that we always need to, I think we should be reminded of, is that it's always presented as if like there's safety and there's economy, and they are just opposite ends of the spectrum. But when I've had meetings with HTA folks, for example, or hotel managers or hoteliers, I guess I should call them, it was really the stop and go and the uncertainty thing that throws them off. Like they can plan for decreases in business, if they know what the plan is. And so really, I think we should be thinking about like, okay, we have this safe travels, pre-travel requirement, but there should be a level above that. There should be a two-step testing thing like what Kauai did that you implement and everybody's familiar with and they know how it works. And you do that when, there's a scary variant that's around in the world, and wait and watch, and see, and see what kind of criteria you should use that is evidence-based, like vaccination rates or, restrictions or rules before you drop that level back down again. So, that's, I think, what we want to see. I think if everybody was familiar with, this is like red level, this is orange, this is yellow, we saw those in the past with like the tier systems as far as restrictions. There just needs to be a higher restriction, have the plan in place so that we can enact it if we have to. And, the economy will understand how that's going to work, travel or whatever we're talking about, but it doesn't have to be completely contradictory. But what we have right now is we have an insufficient system, at least at the highest level that we have, as far as safe travels. We don't have a requirement for boosters. So we have an insufficient, safety system right now, which sets us up for having to do something drastic like stay-at-home orders, which is sort of the worst scenario for the economy, rather than having something that, would be, yes, it's more complex. Yes, it takes work, but it would be less likely to lead to the need for very drastic impacts on the economy in the future.
You running for governor?
No.
Oh, okay. We're just checking, man. We're just checking.
I heard you got to spend a lot of time on Facebook arguing with people, so I don't have the time for that.
That is, I think, all the hotel people that we know, hotel employees, managers, whatever, that is exactly what they've been asking for, right? They need consistency, even if it's more restrictive. But if they know what it's going to be, they can prepare and they can adapt. But this, so the next surge comes up. We put back the, we go with the same speeches. That's why my head spins so much, because it's like deja vu, right? We've heard the same things twice or three times before, and then now we're going on the downswing and everything is all good, and then we, in a month or two we'll get another surge, and here we go again. Rather than just work on a policy or a protocol that is consistent. I really like the tier system. Now, it has to be completely redone, but if businesses had an idea of what to expect, and there would be warning signs along the way where you might be shifting to another tier, you can prepare for that. Your employees can prepare for that. This whole thing is hard to follow. So hard to follow. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how they developed the tiers, Ponos. They got, medical experts and they got economic experts, and were like, sat them in a room and said, all right, like, well, what would yellow look like to you guys, and what would it look like to us? And then it wasn't us for economy versus medicine or public health. I would say it was, they came together and it worked well, and it's would be an ideal system to have if any variant does roll in the future. And remember, when Omicron was discovered in South Africa, I think it was within a week it was already here, and was probably here earlier than that. So it doesn't take much time, and it should be something that we should be used to, and then also could institute quickly, and flip up to red or, extreme or whatever it may be.
I mean, that's my experience. I mean, my limited experience too. Like I was working with an HTA person here and the Hyatt talking about how they could safely reopen, and they were open to it, with a rapid antigen test on day 2 and 4, like it was a sort of out of quarantine pass. It just sort of the timing didn't work out because our mayor ended up opting back in, right around the time it was implemented, but they're open to it. John Dworkin, I think, reminded me, and I had totally forgotten about it, but it was, a year ago, we were talking about also having a locally produced rapid test. And the state doesn't seem like they've invested in that either. I mean, that would be fantastic, and some of these things preparing for the future are job creators. I mean, there's tests would create jobs, needing to do lab testing is jobs, so I mean, there's other things that can be created for the economy as we also prepare.
Yep. And then that could even be a travel boom as well, as like come to islands that are the safest in the United States, or the safest in the world. Like you could spearhead, this is the safest travel destination in the world, and that could be a new if you're looking at it from an economic standpoint. And then you're satisfying both arms, right? And you got home runs on both sides. So
I'm pretty sure that happened with Kauai. I mean,
yep.
At least in those few months right after we rejoined.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, my daughter went to Dubai, just came back a few days ago. She went for a week. I looked up Dubai as far as COVID, relatively safe, but they also have very strict protocols in place. And one of them being that as soon as you land and you come off that plane, you get a PCR test. And then you quarantine until you get your test results. Now, did that stop my daughter from going to Dubai because, oh my God, I got to take a test. After we arrive, I got to take a test. Cancel the trip. Cancel. No, it's not going to happen. And we're not going to lose tourism because we're going to require testing on day 1, day 2, or day 3. It's not going to happen. Yeah, you lose some. But you're not gonna cripple the visit industry by being safe. And if you market it as such, I think people will be willing to come to an environment that is safe or safer. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I think at this point, for all intents and purposes, our state is pretty much wide open, especially on Oahu. I mean, you guys have really no restrictions on Oahu. No capacity limits, no social distancing in bars and restaurants. Definitely no enforcement in bars and restaurants for wearing masks. So, it is what it is. I think a lot of people are complacent. I heard you use that word. I think not just the people, but our government has become complacent and willing to ride it out and hope for the best. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm a little worried. I hope that the worst is over, but a lot of the experts are saying now is not the time to lower your guard or take your foot off the gas pedal, whatever. Oh, we lost Capono.
Yeah, it's kind of like dig some more trenches, and that doesn't mean shut everything off, but it's just prepare. That's when the artillery stops firing. That's when you kind of, all right, let's stick our heads out and let's see what else we can do to make some defenses. So. And I'd love to see that as soon as possible. But you said it well, Charlie and Mel, that complacent. That's where we are.
We're also coming into a time, and again, there's a lot of comparisons that we can make with this virus to real life situations. One of them, Mel and I, having been in law enforcement, intel tells us that when there is a viable threat that's going to come into the United States, it may not come openly like you would normally see on a maybe an enemy ship coming into port or planes coming overhead. Everything will be just like you and me come walking right through the airports, right? And we take precautionary measures, and we vet everybody coming. And again, I say, I just have a hard time understanding being the power that we are, the United States of America, right? Especially Hawaii, having all these strategic points like Pearl Harbor and who knows what, that we are not taking. Well, I guess they're taking it seriously, but it's not what I would expect, because I think a lot of times we have to look at uh, chemical warfare, right? Omicron is a prime example that if it's not played right, it could lead to chemical warfare. That could be the sleeper of all sleepers. Everybody says, it's just another virus, yeah. And and you talked about artificial intelligence, right? Once that thing latches onto you, who knows what? And I think we're always told in police work, we always prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and we do that constantly. And you hear these things like, oh, you kiss your wife goodbye when you're working graveyard shift, and you hope you make it through the night so you can see your family the next day. That's no lie. That's the real deal. And I think for those who haven't been vaccinated, this is the real deal right now. And we have bona fide cases where people did not make it. And like you said earlier, I don't know why they're not heeding that warning, but it's gotten to the point that they get more resistant if you try to tell them, hey, come on, you gotta go get vaccinated. They get more resistant against you. And so you kind of shake your head and says, well, I tried my best and I just hope and pray nothing happens to you. But it's just like a foregone conclusion. It comes around. He says, "Hey, you heard so and so that this, and he's in a hospital, or she's in a hospital right now," and yet you beat yourself up because you've been just telling them a couple of weeks ago, "Go get vaccinated, go get vaccinated," and now they're in the hospital. So it's a tough pill to swallow. As I say, the tough pill to swallow. Right?
Yeah, the dilemma. I tell you, it's a dilemma. Man, Dr. Capone, I thought I had said the wrong thing, boy, because right after I popped off, you had cut out. I'm thinking, oh my God, I must have
Mel,
pissed him off.
you guys, you know what happened? My phone overheated. I have no idea. I think it was your Portuguese blood, probably.
It
Just
could be.
like
It's so weird that you bring that up. Oh, I think I might have deleted that picture. Yesterday, my phone came up and it says, "You're." I've never seen that. It didn't work, and it had on a black screen. It said, "Your phone is too hot to operate. Cool off before you can use your phone or whatever." I'd never seen that, so I took a screenshot of it and I must have deleted it. But that was bizarre. So maybe I don't know. Maybe it's a virus in the. Is that an iPhone?
it is.
Yeah, so it must be a virus. Must be the virus for the iPhones. Oh boy. Scotty Shapiro is asking, how does Dr. O'Carroll feel about a fourth shot? Fourth shot after 6 months past your booster.
Well, I do believe this is probably a herald of what the future is going to look like. If you look at what the variants have done, it almost seems like at least every 6 months there's something new, right? And that's I believe not only just because it's a new variant, but we're seeing that our immunity is waning. Study just came out today, Scotty, about what I was really looking for too is like what is an Omicron specific booster going to look like and what does it do? And these were just only 8 primates, but they ended up giving half of them an Omicron specific booster, a third shot that was Omicron specific. So it had the spike protein that looked like Omicron. And then the other half, they used not the Delta, but the original wild type strain, which what all our vaccines look like now. And our body didn't really recognize that Omicron vaccine very well, just like it doesn't really recognize the Omicron variant that well. And it's hypothesized, and this just came out today, and again, it's a primate study, so it's not, not a large study as well, but it's hypothesized that your immune system has like a very robust memory, but when it first sees something, it kind of really caters its immune response to that. And a great example of it is all the way back in 1918, the H1N1 pandemic strain of flu infected some really young kids, and those kids ended up surviving. And when that H1N1 came around again, and I believe it was in the 80s, they weren't. You would suspect that these elderly people were really predisposed just because of their age and the comorbidities. They were predisposed to possibly having some severe side effects. But those who caught and survived the original pandemic H1N1 strain did really well against the H1N1 that looped around again 70, 80 years ago. They still had an immune system response, but it's because that first one was so similar to the one 80 years ago. So it's looking like it's something called original antigenic sin, but the fourth shot is likely going to stick probably something close to wild type, if I had to guess. But again, there's got to be a lot more studies. But it's looking, I think in the future, we're going to at least have a vaccination that maybe combines flu and COVID into one. Who knows? But you're going to have to get a regular shot just because immunity wanes, just like the flu shot, because things are changing rapidly.
Dara, I actually want to know if you know more about this. I remember in September there was an article about a combination spike protein and nucleocapsid protein vaccine, which at least when I read it at that time, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Do more than one protein, and I'm not sure. I would imagine maybe the nucleocapsid doesn't mutate as much, but just wondering if you've read anything more about that since then.
I didn't read more about it since then. I don't know how exposed, I don't know what your thoughts on it too, is how exposed the nucleocapsid protein is to the immune system. I know the universal flu vaccine that they're working on is trying to latch on to not the top of the spike that the flu has, but the stalk. And so I'm not sure if the pan-coronavirus vaccine is going to try and do the same thing. But haven't heard any more about it. And, any new targets that we can develop, like the nucleocapsid protein, would be great. So
I'm sure it's an exciting time right now for scientists, for all of these people that develop vaccines. And I mean, that's a horrible way to put it, but this is an opportunity for them to really utilize their genius and start to look at creating new vaccines that maybe will be combined, like MMR or whatever. What is it? The mumps,
Yep.
measles. Yeah.
Yep.
All of those that, I think people, including myself, sometimes because it seems like it's been forever, we forget to realize that it's still a relatively new virus and these variants. Every time they start figuring out what COVID is doing, a new variant pops up with new characteristics and new mutations. So, I like I told my kids, I said, you guys are all part of history, because we are living in a time that what we're going through is being used to develop hopefully the solution for this virus. But it's still it's relatively new, especially with new variants coming up. So.
I really wish maybe one day these two world-renowned doctors on our show tonight will find a way of the easy explanation, because I think a lot of times we can, in the heat of the moment, we remember a lot, but if you let it cool down a little, we'll forget a lot, and then we get confused when people ask us questions. Hey, what about your latency period? What about with incubation period? And we start, because numbers start getting all worked up, and it's sort of. And I wish there was a way that we could say it simply that people remember. And I think the job will be much easier, to the point that, hey, if we just follow these ABCs, then we'll be okay. But I think people are skipping. They're skipping things, and I think they're playing with. This thing is rather dangerous. I never thought of it being so dangerous, even though I lost my brother. And then I thought to myself, well, you know what? I'm going to get boosted. Yeah. But then when I start seeing people getting sick after they're being boosted, I go, ooh, you start taking a step back, right? So there are still those out there that said, hey, I'm going to chance it. And again, I wish there was something very, very simple that make things very understandable. But I'm saying this loudly because I know you two guys are going to work on it right now, and hopefully
I wish
feel it soon.
I wish we would see these guys more on the mainstream, more on on
Yeah,
our local news, more on
exactly.
Spotlight,
Yeah,
but it's because I think you guys deliver these messages in a way people can really appreciate and understand.
exactly.
But I know it's a little after 8, but I want to say, I was talking to a friend, and most of us have had the occasion to go to the emergency room, for whatever. I've been there many times. Where, you step on something, a dog bite you, or whatever it is, and you go there. And once I fell and I landed on my elbow, and the doctor said, we gotta suck out the juice, and we're gonna send them off to a lab to see if it's staph, but we're gonna treat it as staph. Okay, because it's gonna take a few days to get the results. So we're gonna treat it. I'm gonna give you a shot of whatever. The most painful shot that they have. He told me like that. I said, what? But this is my point. Whether it's a tetanus shot, whether it's some kind of growing up with asthma, you got to get an adrenaline shot, whatever it is. How many of these people today that are saying this vaccine is so bad and it's this and that? If you go to the ER and a doctor's ready to shoot you up with some kind of medication that's going to save your life or is going to fix your problem, you tell a doctor, wait, doc, I got to go Google this. I got to make sure I know what all the ingredients in this thing is. I got to make sure I know what all the side effects are before I let you poke me. It's so bizarre. So bizarre that this, the solution, a big part of the solution is here, and it's been here, and we still struggle with how we're going to fight this virus, how we're going to end this virus.
Hey Mel, I gotta tell you one thing. I've been going to therapy for almost 2 years now to avoid what you just talked about. But now you brought it up like PTSD for me because I actually go and seek out people who are adamant. I don't need to take the vaccine shot, and I'm waiting for them to get tagged, so I can go. Aha, there you go. But man, I know what you're saying, brother.
Yeah, I mean, you go to the dentist, they pull out that fat needle. Hey, wait, doc, hang on. Let me Google this. What is that called? Okay. Oh, no, 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 no. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up because,
Well,
a lot of times we overcomplicate things as humans, and not just with COVID, but in life, we overcomplicate things, and we should just do what we need to do.
You have to think about those people as victims of misinformation, I think. I mean, and that's sad. And, I think that's where, and it's clear to me because I see those people, some of these people I've had conversations on multiple occasions with, trying to convince them, trying to communicate in different ways. And it's like one by one, they end up in the ICU. I mean, I can think of one in particular right now of my patients who's there, and I think this patient is going to recover, but it's been there a while and still on a lot of oxygen, and I see it as they were victims, and there should be some accountability for some of these people. Doctors we're trying to at least hold more doctors that are spreading misinformation accountable for the effects of that. But I think, that's really the answer why no one cares about whatever thing that you're getting injected with in the ER is it didn't get politicized, and it didn't get, we're not talking about, Toradol being the mark of the beast, or the things that you do in the ER. We just don't talk about it like that, so people don't have to think like that. But at least from my perspective, it's easier to think about these people as victims. It feels less frustrating to try to talk to them and try to address the situation and convince them to think otherwise. But you bring up a good point. We all realize as doctors, we don't speak the same way that most of our patients do. And I think, I'm in a position where I really strive to bridge that gap, because that's just kind of the position that I have. I've been going to some of the charter schools recently and talking to kids, and we're doing role playing with the vaccines, and making balloons as the spike protein to help them understand how they work in their body and try to make it familiar and not scary. But it's a challenge, and you got to bridge that both worlds. I always try to dumb down Dara, and then he sends me these really intelligent papers, and then I have to get smarter again. But that's kind of how it is. So it's a valid criticism. We all of us doctors realize that's a problem, would like to do better, but it's easier said than done, to communicate the way that the general public understands, and in a way that will appeal to them.
Mm-hmm.
No, you two of you do a great job. I think for our viewers, I mean, you guys actually bring it in a way that we can all understand. I think, and that's so much appreciated. Hey, is that Toradol? Is that what you give for staff?
Oh no, I mean, it's just like a common injection in the ER, it's like an ibuprofen, like an injected ibuprofen for pain or whatever.
Yeah,
Staph is not an antibiotic.
What would if you had to treat me for staph, what would you shoot my butt with? Because it had to be in the butt. What? Because I'm trying to. Toradol sound familiar.
Resin.
What was it? Your tetanus update, or what was it?
No, it wasn't tetanus, because I don't know. You the doctor, doc. Yeah, I don't know what they gave you for staph. I don't know.
If it was an antibiotic, or probably a cephalosporin, something strong.
Maybe Rocephin, yeah. Maybe they gave, but that's not really for staph.
Yeah.
Well, he told me it was the worst shot, the worst pain. I don't know why he told a person that is afraid of shots this. And I think it was Rocephin. That sounds more familiar. And I said, Doc, I've been in the military. I got shot up with typhoid and this and that and this and that. He goes, oh, I was in the military too, and this is the worst. So the nurse came in, poked him in my butt, and it didn't. I didn't feel a thing.
I told you
about 6 seconds. For about 6 seconds, and then it felt like she hit me with a sledgehammer right on my ass cheek. I had never felt anything like that in my life. And that was amazing how that thing hurt like that. It wasn't penicillin, because I'm allergic to penicillin. So yeah, it was Rocephin. That was the one.
You sure they never try to inject you with a capsule on? Maybe that's why it was sore.
I think they were using cement, like some kind of or glue. It hurt like hell. And then it really hurt. And then 2 days later, they call Mr. Raposo. The test came back. Yeah, you don't have staph. Oh, damn it! Anyway.
But you got a severe hematoma.
Phew, I couldn't. I had to sit on the left cheek. That was horrible.
Well, I would like to say, I know it's getting past that hour, but again, thanks to both of you for, help spreading logic. I think you come from, there's some individuals. I mean, they're good doctors, but they're so intense that it's very hard to follow along. But when I heard Larry Brilliant that night, I was just like in awe. And you guys are just like him. You guys just put it out there. And I remember when I was in a department, they always say, hey, as a traffic officer, you rely on physics. But there's just some things in life you just won't get the answer to, because it just doesn't work out. So don't go and fudge your numbers, because then you'll never testify in court again. And I think from what you guys have said, you guys are just leaving it out there the best possible way for us to understand it. And I appreciate it so very, very much, both of you. So thank you very, very much.
I know we're in a little overtime, but I do want to give you both an opportunity to share with our viewers. I know, like I said, it's been a while. But Dara, anything for our viewers before we wrap this up?
No, just keep tuning in. I think there's always really good information here, and keep voicing what you feel is right for combating. I think maybe we can harp on this too, is combating the misinformation that's out there. And I think it's a really good way to look at it, as Capono said, is victims of misinformation. And so let's continue to get the right information out there, and it'll save lives. So
Thanks, Doc. Capono.
I think my biggest message now, now that it's looking like we've passed the peak of this surge, is just what we've been talking about, that we should be doing what we can to prepare for the next one. Hopefully there isn't going to be another severe one, but it's unlikely that will be the last surge. I think we should expect our leaders to be trying to take those steps too, and we should encourage them to do so. So that's my biggest thing, and do what you can individually. Order the home test if you can. See if you can, get some for yourself at home. N95 masks. Do what you can to try to be prepared for the next one. Because it's when we get surges, we run out of tests sometimes. And I would say don't squander them. I hear a lot of people. It's like they seem to be testing really frequently, sometimes too frequently. And I understand there's anxiety, and sometimes maybe that helps to reassure people. But everyone individually, we should be thinking about being prepared for the next surge. And then, of course, as a society, as a state and county and all of our communities, be thinking about how we can be better prepared for the next one. And I think, schools, for example, still could use a lot of work as far as how to be prepared for the situation. And then, of course, try to keep getting clear messages out about vaccines and boosters. I know it's tiring, and we all wish this was going to be like 1 or 2 shots and this thing is over, but it's not. And I think people just need to start accepting that that's going to be how it is, at least for a little while, until these surges go down and we get higher vaccination rates. So just take all the measures that you can to keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, and then that will help keep all our communities safe.
Yep.
Thanks, Doc. Charles.
I think again, it's another learning experience tonight. Taking the 2 words of wisdom from both doctors tonight. We try to do our best. I send a shout out to Chris Faya. I see she's probably going to take my advice for example, and maybe go buy some test kits for her working place, just to stay ahead of the curve. But remember, when we first started, Mel, everything was about flattening the curve, and for some reason, the message from our leaders at the top have gone way sideways on this. And like both doctors have said tonight, stay away from the misinformation. You know what's right. You know that the right information is out there, and just help spreading the word. Keep it civil, especially when you're involved in an engagement with someone who's adamant that they're not going to change their mind. Just let them know that you care about them and move on. There's always another day to fight the battle. But for the most part, keep yourself safe out there, keep your family safe, and to every single one that joined us tonight, thank you very, very much for being here with us, because it takes all of you to make this village successful. So just keep on joining us whenever you can. Thank you so much, Brother Mel.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you, doctors. Appreciate you guys again. We want to get you on more frequently. You guys, like I said, you guys are like requested by the village. I think I mentioned it earlier. We got to work with the willing people. Those that you're not going to convince them or change their minds. Just stay away from them because they're probably a very high risk people or risky people that you don't want to be around anyway. You don't want to get COVID. But again, it's about getting the right information and sharing that. And I say this every night. The best thing you can do is share this video tonight. Just hit the share button. If you're watching on YouTube, just share the YouTube video. Get the right information into people's hands, and then they can make some good decisions and at least counter the misinformation that they may be getting from the water cooler at the workplace or from the cafeteria. Or, we're going to win this thing by informing the public to do the right thing. That's how we're going to win. We're not going to win this with all vaccines or masks. Or, when we're going to win this war with informing the people to do the right thing. And as Capono just said, we all got to do what we need to do to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe. So with that, folks, again, Docs, thank you. Charlie, thank you very much. Have a great, safe weekend. And we will see you guys on Monday night at 7 o'clock. Hello, everybody.